So, hello again and welcome to my video blog. This video is going to be the third in my beginning transition series. And in this video I'm kind of assuming that you've watched the first two videos. But in case you haven't, I'll basically summarize what I've said. Well, in the first video I encouraged you to explore your gender identity and to get involved in the community a little bit, get to meet some other trans people in your area or at least online. And in the second video, I encouraged you to make some changes to your life that are non-committal, that is, changes that are not permanent, so that you can kind of experiment with changing your appearance a little bit and seeing how comfortable you feel doing that, etc. I've also encouraged you to get a gender therapist, and if you are male to female, to freeze some sperm in a sperm bank in case you would start hormones later. So in this video I'm going to talk about changes that are more permanent. I'm going to talk about changes that are real big changes to your life, and changes that you should only make really if you feel that transition is for you, you feel like you're ready to take some risks. So I'm going to basically talk about taking hormones to feminize or masculinize your appearance and coming out to your friends and your family. Well, one of the first things I'm going to say is that some people say that you should be going full-time as a male or female, that is, living all the time in your preferred gender role before you start hormones. That's an opinion that many people share, but personally I find that it's often difficult to do that because I can tell you myself, I just didn't pass as a woman without hormones. It was not really possible. And I would have found it extremely difficult to go full-time before being on the hormones. And so I decided to start hormones first and to go full-time, sometime later. And I can tell you that it's perfectly doable, and I don't think it's something that's irresponsible to do. I think it's perfectly normal to go on hormones before you go full-time. And hormones will, at least if you're male to female, hormones will not make you unable to pass as a man for some time, so they don't force you really to go full-time immediately when you start them. But anyways, before you start hormones, I think it's important to consider, coming out. Why? Well, because hormones will have some noticeable effect on your body. They will make your appearance change, become more feminine or more masculine. And at some point, you won't really be able to hide it, especially from the people that know you personally. They will notice and they will wonder what's going on and they will ask questions. And I think it's important to have support and not be alone in this transition process. So I think probably before you start hormones, you should think about coming out. Telling at least your close friends and the members of your family that you feel are going to respond well to this. Because it's a very important life decision, and as I said, you don't want to be alone in this. Now, this might be kind of a touchy thing for you to do because not everybody is going to react well to this. And if you're wondering how people are going to react, I can tell you from experience, I think it's pretty easy to predict. If someone is liberal and is okay with homosexuality and all that, then they probably won't react badly. Now, if someone in your family is homophobic and is always calling people faggots and think that homosexuals should not be granted marriage and blah blah blah, and that they're evil and that they're sinners and blah blah blah, then probably this person will not accept you. They will not understand that you are not homosexual. They will not even differentiate between homosexuals and transsexuals, and they will reject you. They will say that what you're doing is wrong and they won't understand. So these people are probably not even worth coming out to, in a sense. But some people, probably will understand. And I think you have to tell people at some point, because it's going to be inevitable eventually that they figure it out. And I think it's better for you to get some people on your side first, rather than having everybody figure it out at some point, and having this rumor spread around basically later on when you don't want it to. I think it's better to be prepared and to come out before people find out on their own. I will also say that I really, really think you should not start hormones before telling your significant other. If you're in a relationship, because hormones can affect your sex life, they can affect your libido very strongly. And I just think if you are in a relationship with someone, it's completely irresponsible to hide from them that you are transitioning and that you are starting hormones. And I would say that if you haven't told your significant other about your plans, you are not ready to start hormones. And you should come out to them. You may or may not be able to stay in that relationship, but if you're going to make such a big change to your life, if you decided that you were going to transition, then you kind of have to accept the fact that you might lose this relationship that you're in, but you're not going to be increasing your chances of staying in that relationship by hiding such a big secret from your lover and hoping they never find out, because they will find out eventually. Okay, so now that this coming out issue is out of the way, I'm going to start talking about hormones. So there's many questions that people ask me about hormones all the time. I've already made a video about my hormone regimen, which is called Updates and My Hormone Regimen, which you can find in my videos. But yeah, first, before I start talking about the effects of the hormones and all that, I'm going to remind you of what I said in the last video. I really think that if you are male to female, and you are remotely thinking of the possibility of ever having a child one day, you should freeze sperm in a sperm bank before you start hormones. Because hormones can make you sterile, and they will eventually make you sterile if you've been on them for too long. And if you are thinking of having a child, you want to be able to have some sperm at some point. So go to a sperm bank and ask about freezing sperm. It's not very expensive, it's not very complicated, and it's much simpler to do before you begin hormones. Also, when you are thinking about starting hormones, you want to be committed. You want to make sure that once you begin taking hormones, you'll never have to stop. That means you should be in a situation where you're able to guarantee, enough income to always pay your hormones every month. You should be in a situation, where you have control over your hormones, where, if you're under 18 and you live with your parents and your parents are against this whole idea of transition, you probably won't be able to take hormones while you live in their house, because they could throw them in the garbage, they could, inspect your mail if you're getting them by mail, etc. You want to be in a situation in life where you are able to control your supply of hormones and to make sure you'll never have to stop. Now, the serious questions, how do you get hormones? Well, there's many ways to get hormones. The recommended way is to get them through a doctor, have a doctor follow you, do blood tests regularly to make sure that you're healthy and that nothing is going wrong with your hormones. To do that, you would have to go to an endocrinologist, ideally. That's a specialist of the hormone system, so a specialized endocrinologist doctor. You can try finding a doctor also by going to your generalist and asking them if he's willing to prescribe, because some family doctors will prescribe hormones by themselves, or if they don't prescribe, they might be able to refer you to an endocrinologist. But there's something that might hinder you, and this is that some endocrinologists will require reference letters from gender therapists before they accept to prescribe hormones. So you might want to, see a gender therapist and have them write you a reference letter. You might need to do that before you're able to get hormones. Now, you also have to remember that there is not just one endocrinologist in the world. If one of them won't prescribe you hormones, you can always go see another one and ask again and again until you find a doctor that will prescribe. If you really can't have a doctor, or you can't afford a doctor, or whatever reason, you're not able to see a doctor, it's possible to self-medicate. That is, it's possible to buy hormones online on the internet, and I won't tell you where, but it's pretty easy to find out. But it's not really recommended, because basically you're not having a doctor follow you, and you don't have any blood tests being done. You could basically put your health at some level of risk, and you could self-prescribe some medications that are not appropriate, or it's less safe, essentially. So I recommend that you go to your doctor. If you're self-medicating, actually, it's possible to do this safely by basically telling your doctor that, if he doesn't prescribe, you're going to self-medicate, and that you would rather have his supervision. And in that case, most doctors will say, okay, I will supervise you, I will do your blood tests, to make sure that everything is okay. So if you can't have a doctor to prescribe, it might still be possible to at least have a doctor to make sure everything is okay and to follow you. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the effects of hormones a little bit. There's many things to know about the effects of hormones. They can do a lot of things for you. There's also a bunch of things that people imagine that hormones will do, which they don't do. If you want to know more about the effects of hormones, I recommend that you Google, transsexual hormones online, or you go to the website Second Type Woman, which is at secondtype.com. And there's many interesting resources that will explain all those things. But basically, when you start taking hormones, I'm going to talk about male to female transsexuals here, mostly because that's what I have experience with. But about 1 or 2 months after you start taking hormones, you're going to start to feel that your breasts are itching, your nipples are itching, because your breasts are going to start to grow. So hormones will provoke breast growth. This can take up to 5 years to be complete, but most of the growth will be attained after 2 years. The growth that you'll obtain from hormones, it's impossible to guess how much you will have, but it will probably be much less than most females, unfortunately. Hormones have much less effect when you take them, long after puberty. So basically, breast growth, you might need to get implants at some point. You might want to think about it, maybe. But you will get some breast growth from hormones. Also, they will make your skin softer after maybe as short, as 2 weeks or a month. What else will they do? Well, they will change your body smell to a more female smell. Now, you might not notice, but male and female urine and male and female sweat do not smell the same. So your sweat and your body odors will shift to a more female pattern. Your body hair will decrease a little bit. You'll have less body hair, and your pelvic hair will take a more female pattern. Another great thing that hormones will do is that they will stop balding. Basically, if you're having male pattern balding, that will stop. But this is not actually the female hormones that do this. It's the anti-androgens, which is a product that's taken with the hormones that basically blocks the effects of testosterone and will stop you from masculinizing more as time passes. What else do hormones do? Well, they can have some psychological effects on you. Some people will say that they will make you more calm, less aggressive. I tend to think that this is true, but the effects are actually quite subtle. I find they're not, I didn't start crying like a baby every day after starting hormones or anything. I've always been a sensitive person, I still am, but I don't think that hormones made my feelings go out of control or anything. Also, hormones will change your patterns of body fat. You will have more of a female pattern of body fat. That is, you will have fuller cheeks eventually, and more butt, and things like that. Fat will accumulate in more female locations. It will also accumulate around the hips and all that instead of on the belly. So those are some of the changes that you can expect from hormones, and more. Basically, what hormones do is that they will provoke a female puberty. They will provoke the development of female secondary sexual characteristics. Beyond that, anti-androgens, which you would take with female hormones, will possibly reduce your libido. If you had a strong male sex drive, it's possible that your libido on hormones will decrease, possibly quite drastically. If your libido decreases too much or ceases to exist, you might want to adjust your regimen a little bit, but that's something to be prepared for. Again, I've talked a little bit more about this issue in my video about my hormone regimen, how to preserve your libido when you're on female hormones. Apart from that, well, something else I wanted to mention is that you should know your regimen. Not all doctors, not all endocrinologists are very informed about female hormones, because the products that you're taking as female hormones are products that were developed for women undergoing menopause. They were not developed for transsexuals. And so some doctors, know about the dosage that you should prescribe to menopausal women, but this dosage might be much, much too low for transsexuals. And when it comes to anti-androgens, those products were not conceived for transsexuals. They were conceived to mitigate the risks of prostate cancer, and so some doctors will prescribe you by default dosages that are associated with prostate cancer, and that might be, way more anti-androgens than you need. And as it turns out, anti-androgens have side effects. So I would say that, when you're starting hormones, you should inform yourself about what kind of medications your doctor wants to prescribe, and you should know what these medications do. You should know what are the trade-offs. You should know what are the typical dosages that a transsexual should take, and things like that. Because your doctor, you can just assume that your doctor knows all these things, but in some cases that's just not true. Some doctors still try to prescribe birth control pills to transsexual women. Another important point that I wanted to mention is, there's many transsexuals that are taking herbal hormones, or considering taking herbal hormones, aka natural hormones, extracted from plants. You should know that herbal hormones are crap. They are not effective. They are much too weak, and they are dangerous for you. Herbal hormones, phytoestrogens, plant estrogens, are toxic to your liver. And they're just way too weak. They're much weaker than the hormones that you'll get prescribed, for transition from a real doctor. And the problem is, that in the doses you have to take for them to have any kind of effect, you could possibly cause harm to your liver. So, I really don't recommend taking herbal hormones. Some people think that because it comes from a plant, it's better because it's more natural and safer. But I think you should realize, if you're thinking that, that cyanide is a naturally occurring substance, it exists in plants, and there is such a thing as a poisonous mushroom. And it might grow in the forest, but if you take a bite out of it, it could actually kill you. So it's not because something comes from a plant that it's safe and better. Okay, so moving on, my personal recommendations as far as hormones. Well, again, if you want my personal recommendations in detail, you can watch my video about my hormone regimen. But I'm going to say myself that I will vouch for hormones by injection. Those are the safest and most effective kinds of hormones that you can get. And you only have to inject your hormones, once a week or once per 2 weeks, which is possibly less annoying than having to take your hormones 1 or more times a day. Apart from that, well, if you have more questions about hormones, you want to know more, you want to ask about self-prescribing hormones, you should go to the TS Do It Yourself Hormones Yahoo group, and on this group you will find a discussion board basically full of other transsexuals who are questioning themselves about hormones, and many of them are self-medicating, and you will find basically all the information that you need on there. So if you have any question about hormones, go there. Now, you might not be able to find this Yahoo group on Google, but if you search for it on yahoo.com, you will find it. Okay, so that's all I have to say for today, people. Bye-bye.